Good? How are you guys? Everybody's well?
Woo!
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Welcome to our Pinnacle University Buyer Seminar. Our first one we've done here so far this year. We got a great panel for you today. My name is Francis Zipeto. I'm the Director of Sales here at the Pinnacle Homes Group. We have Michelle, Shahred, Trey. We're gonna have you all introduce each other, and we're gonna go through this today. So, why don't you guys just say who you are, how long you've been in the business, and
Sorry,
From the top.
we're back.
I'm Michelle Silva. I am with Keller Williams for 8 years and almost 6 years with Pinnacle Homes Group. I do buyers and sellers, and I love what I do.
Hi, my name is Shahred Musovic, and I've been doing real estate since 2008. And I've been with Pinnacle Homes Group for 2 years now.
I'm Trey Delgreco with Movement Mortgage. I'm the local market leader here in Orlando. I've been with the company 7 years now, in the business 8 years.
cool. Again, I'm Francis Zipeto. I've been in the business since 2008. I literally got my license the day the market crashed, so I've seen quite a few things in the industry. So I'll tell you what the purpose of today was. So the purpose of today was to make sure that everybody got a clear picture of what's really happening in today's real estate market. People like to watch the news to get their information. I would say not to do that right at this moment in the real estate market especially, but not anywhere for anything in particular. But we want to make sure if you're thinking about buying real estate, even between now and 24 months from now, like 3 years from now, we want to make sure you understand how the process works, what the market looks like, and where we're all sitting in the current day today. So what I wanted to do is kind of want to kick off with you, Trey, a little bit, because you guys give this to all of your folks who get pre-approved or are trying to get pre-approved, preparing for your home loan. So gigantic portion of people get mortgages for their properties when they purchase. So we all have our own stories of things that have gone haywire when people try to do too many things at once while they're trying to purchase a home. So why don't you share a couple things that you think possibly should never be done if you're thinking about purchasing a home in the next year?
Things to never be done. All right, so procrastination obviously is a big one. I think talking to a lender is probably the scariest step in the mortgage process. It's a very vulnerable position for people to be in. There's a lot of sensitive information that we talk about, and that scares a lot of people, and rightfully so. So naturally, people put that off, then they try to rush through that step because they found the perfect house, they want to go write an offer today. That is probably the worst thing you can do if you're going to be getting a mortgage. You alluded to a 24-month timeline earlier. Even if your plan is 12 to 24 months, I would still encourage everybody to start talking to a lender now. Even go as far as to fill out an application now. Just because you apply for a mortgage doesn't mean we're going to pressure you to buy a home right away. It's all about building a mortgage game plan. If you push that off, you're going to get to where you're ready to buy a home, only to then find out you're not really ready, and now your process gets delayed again. So it is never too early to start talking to a lender. And then just some technical things, moving money around from accounts, one account to the other, not necessarily a problem all the time, but it does cause frustrations. It causes additional paperwork and additional steps in the mortgage process. Cash deposits is a big one. We have to document every dollar that's spent on your home transaction. So it's another reason to start early. If you're somebody that keeps chunks of money at home in a safe, we're going to need to get those into your bank account, let it season there for 60 days so that we can be ready to go when the time comes. So large purchases is another one, changing jobs, things like that. Any large changes to your financial picture, those are the things you want to avoid.
Yeah, what about once you get pre-approved? Let's say that Shahred or Michelle got a buyer pre-approved. We're going to go look at houses. What's some things they probably should not do till they close?
After pre-approval. Change jobs, I mentioned that a second ago, that's a big one. Shop outside of the pre-approval range that we've placed you in. So that's kind of a big part of starting early, is it's not just about finding out how much you get approved for, it's about finding you the right mortgage program with the right payment and the right down payment. So if we've identified that based on your financial goals, we need to be shopping in the $300,000 range, we don't need to be on Zillow looking at $400,000 and $500,000 houses, because even if you could get approved for those, you're not going to want to pay the monthly payment associated with them. So that would be a big one. And then, I mean, definitely wait until after you're pre-approved to start shopping. It doesn't really make sense to go look at houses before you're actually pre-approved and know what your target price range is.
That pre-approval almost makes you a cash buyer.
It depends on the lender, it depends on the pre-approval you're using.
But,
But yeah, I mean, that's why we ask for so many documents up front and we ask so many questions up front, is we want that pre-approval letter to be a guaranteed solid thing. If you rush through the pre-approval step or you don't take the proper steps to get a true pre-approval, let's say you're just on a whim getting a pre-qualification, I mean, that thing could go sideways at any point in time. So always best to give more information early.
And those of you watching on Facebook, we're going to make sure when we send this link out later on, we'll send it with the slides. I know it's not challenging to see with the slides, but we have not that many slides, but we do have a few that we'll give you some more information on. So we'll make sure you guys get copies of those. Shahred, people like to hear examples. Why don't you share the example of a buyer that you had that we had a really hard time closing for a bad decision?
So yes, I had a client that was pre-approved. It was him and his wife, and at that moment everything looked amazing, but he decided to go and buy a car a month before closing. So obviously the debt to ratios changed, so he was no longer able to afford that mortgage. So we had to come in with different co-signers in order to be able to continue the deal. So it was a little bit messy. We were able to close, but it did create some challenges in the deal.
Yep, a lot of challenges. And then you have somebody now that can't even purchase because of the same reason.
Yep, same reason. Just try to pre-approve somebody with Trey, and she decided to buy a few cars, not just one, like 3, right before getting pre-approved for a mortgage.
Yeah, that'll hurt.
Yeah.
Why does it hurt, Trey? People don't understand why. Why is the purpose of, why does that kill you?
Yeah, so it's called the ability to repay rule. Ultimately, you're taking out a large loan. We have to show that you have enough income on a monthly basis to pay not just the mortgage, but all the other debts that you have on a monthly basis as well. So if you go buy 3 cars and those total up to $1,500 in car payments, that's an extra $1,500 that we now have to fit into that ability to repay. So that's a big hit on your maximum pre-approval as far as how much debt we can actually qualify for using your monthly income.
Yep. Another slide that we'll share with you is the purchase timeline. So we've gone through what things you probably shouldn't do in the process. Let's talk about the process itself. It's more in depth, obviously, than just one slide, but from the time your offer gets accepted to the time we close, Michelle, how long do you think that time is?
30 days.
30 days.
30 to 45, depends on the program that they qualify for.
So based on what you just heard from Trey and the other panelists, it's like you can figure this out for 30 to 45 days. You can kind of hold off on lifestyle changes and job changes and buying certain things. Like I would say probably not to go charge your entire Ashley's furniture for your home the day before you close. Probably not a good idea. But when your offer gets accepted, that's just the beginning of the situation, right? Then from there, we're gonna get you to put some escrow in. We have our inspection time. So usually inspection time is anywhere from 7 to 10 days. Then we go back to the drawing board and see what that looks like. Is it an opportunity to renegotiate? Is there still something with the house we want to move forward with? We have our appraisal process. Trey, we're talking about appraisals. Are you seeing things appraising okay right now?
A lot of it depends on how aggressively the home is priced when they list it. Lately, we've had, north of 50%, more than 50% are appraising at or above value. I'd say about 40% actually have been appraising above value lately, and that's just a sign of the market. Buyers are in a position where they can negotiate, they can ask for credits, they can get a lower price. So I think that's why you're really seeing appraisals come in high. Every once in a while you'll have one come in low, and it always causes some questions, but nothing trend-wise. Everything seems to be right in line with where it should be.
Yeah. After the appraisal, you're almost home free, right? We get the loan approval, we do the final walkthrough, and then we close. But every step of this requires professionalism, right? Doing this by yourself without somebody representing you, each one of these steps of this process could really, really be challenging. Even the final walkthrough. Have you guys ever had a story with the final walkthrough? You walked in, you thought it was going to be one way, and it was completely the other way? Or maybe the house wasn't empty, or yeah.
I did. Actually, this didn't happen in Florida. It was up north when I was doing real estate in Connecticut. Right before the walkthrough, we walk in and the house was full of mold.
Oh.
So, yeah. So that literally killed the deal.
Yeah, I had one that they didn't have the refrigerator for the final walk. Yeah. Mistakenly, they thought they should have taken the refrigerator. So the seller ended up giving a credit to my buyers.
Yep. craziest one I ever had was with a new construction builder, and I won't name the builder, but you probably figured it out. We walked in and the entire shower was missing. There was no shower. And it was the end of the quarter. You know how builders are, right? We gotta push close, right? And a lot of people that go to new construction do not have representation. They walk into the builder and it's like, you're basically a sacrificial lamb at that point. But they walked in and they were gonna try to make these people close with no bathtub, with no shower. Now I can take a couple of azalea bushes, I can deal with it. But for my client not to have a shower, we really fought on that. And the agent wasn't really happy with us because we said, listen, I mean, certain things we just can't do, right? We can't close without a shower. But imagine if we didn't do a final walkthrough and we just went to close. You know, all these situations happened, and then you close, now the house is yours, you go to the property and you realize there's mold, the refrigerator you thought was gonna be there isn't there, you're gonna take a shower because you're really sweaty, but there's no place to do so. I mean, challenging, right? Which is really why hooking yourself with somebody that you can trust and really put this process with is so important.
Yeah, can I add to that? I mean, yes, it's about representation and having somebody to help you, but I mean, what if you had a whole team helping you? Like, we work together as a team so that we can brainstorm ideas. Sometimes there's not anything that the real estate agent can do to fix the situation, but the lender can step in, tweak a few things, add a seller credit, or come up with another solution to get it together. And so when you have a team working together, particularly a team that's familiar with each other, that trusts each other and is working on your behalf, you can make a lot more headway on a lot of steps. You just outlined, 15 different steps that happen over 30 days. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of confusing things, and there's a lot of time and money on the line for you as a home buyer. So having a team that can work together as a team on your behalf, I mean, it's bigger than just representation. It's good representation.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good people out there. There's a lot of ones that aren't so good. There's a lot of good people out there. You want to do due diligence, but I always share with people that I coach in real estate that as real estate professionals, our whole job is to deliver certainty in an uncertain world. Right, so I share with people my buyer's presentation, sales presentation, is that along the way, it's like being on a plane. There's a good chance that between the time we take off and the time we land, we're going to experience turbulence. But my job as the pilot is to get there safe and on-time arrival as best as possible, right? And I share that with our clients to make sure that they can understand that, have the expectation that everything is going to go smooth, but our job is to understand what you're going to need before you need it. That's why we're there. You know, that's why we're there. So there's some other slides that we're going to share with you. I don't know if you can see it up on the TV too much on Facebook, but most of the area that we cover represented people watching here are probably going to be in 4 counties: Osceola, Orange, Lake, and Seminole. I would say that's the majority of where we do most of our business here in this part of Central Florida. What are you guys seeing right now out there? As far as, you know, closed sales, are you seeing more closed sales, less closed sales? What are you guys seeing in your business?
Well, I see it's moving, you know,
Yeah.
it starts picking up again. Buyers out there, we still have a little more power of negotiations, but I see that the market's definitely moving.
Yeah. Yep, I would say that's 100% accurate. This February versus last February, it's almost dead even on home sales have closed. It's a couple of hundred off, but it's pretty much the same. I'll tell you what's been different this year than last year is there's less cash transactions. So last year there was a lot of people paying cash. There's a lot less cash transactions. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the rate has kind of stabilized and people kind of we're going to talk about rate a little bit later, but I think rates have gotten to a point where historically they're pretty normal at this moment. They're not sexy low, but the average sales price, if you hear the things that we say, you think, oh, the prices are crashing. But in all reality, the prices are not crashing at all. They're not doing really anything. They're not doing much up. They're not going much down. Maybe 1% here, 1% there. It's really local. Real estate's local. It depends on where you are and what's happening. Like you're gonna have an area like where Shahred covers in Lake Nona. I mean, that place is still growing all the time, so she might not see a depreciation where you might see something in a different part of the city that is a little different. But we're gonna say in this slide, but I think it's really important to see where we've been to where we are, and understand that real estate in 1 year you cannot take a picture of what real estate is in 1 year. It's a long process between what year 1 and year 20, they see really what a trend looks like. It takes 3 to 5 years to start a trend. And the last time we had any trend that was in the negative was in 2008. You guys remember that? That was fun. Shahred was around then. 2008 was a lot of fun. So that's the last time we had anything negative. So we'll show you some trend lines later, but it's pretty wild to see it. And then our median time to contract. So this is the part that's really changed. This is where, as a buyer, and I'm gonna let you guys kind of touch on this more, the days on market year over year have gone from 39 days this time last year to almost 55 to 60 days in some areas this year. If it's a short-term rental, it's even more. If it's a condo, it's even more. So although to a seller that might not be the best news, but do you guys think it's an advantage or disadvantage to a buyer to have more days on the market?
Advantage.
It's definitely an advantage.
Tell me more.
Buyers have now the power of negotiation, and it all depends on the sellers, obviously, the reason why they're selling. But if you're thinking about buying, get out there.
Yeah.
I think there's an opportunity to capitalize on that as well. So we talked about earlier, it's a 30-day timeline from contract to close.
Yeah.
If you do a lot of the hard work up front, you're working with your lender and your realtor, you put a good game plan together, and you have all that documentation up front, we can take that 30 days and shrink it down to 25 or 20. So what does the seller have to say about that? If they've already had to wait longer just to get under contract, we can now bless them with an extra 5 days and close 5 days sooner. That's less time in total that they're going to be sitting on the market. So it's a huge opportunity to really step into if you navigate it correctly.
And from 2020 to 2022, it was that I had a buyer, but I couldn't find them. I could find them what they wanted, but I had to compete against 1,000 other people. Mm-hmm. In this particular case, if we can get a buyer to find what they want and they're happy with it, we're very, very few competition. The competition is little. Tell the story you shared with the other day at the meeting about Chris, the 50 offers. That was great.
I don't remember exactly how many offers was, but like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, the houses like were having over 30 offers in one particular house. It was like crazy. I had a lot of customers actually that put an offer in one property, and we are outbidded for so many properties, so many other offers. So right now, I feel like the buyers have more houses to choose from. There's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of inventory. If it doesn't go well with one house, they have more options than before. They'll fall in love with the house, but there was like 50, 40 other offers on the property.
Well, what were those buyers doing to put competitive offers back then that's scary and dangerous that they're not having to do now? So there's more protect. You want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. For instance, I had someone that he decided to offer $50,000 over asking price just because he wanted the house, and there was other buyers interested in the house as well. So one of the biggest things, I think, is the price. Also, inspection. A lot of buyers were denying inspection just to move forward and be one step ahead of the others, which is very dangerous to everyone, decline inspection.
Which is kind of funny that you say that, because during that time, people said that was a good market.
Yeah.
A good market for who? Who is it a good market for? Realistically, like it's a good market versus a bad market is just perspective. I mean, I don't believe in good or bad markets. I think markets are just markets. I mean, you saw the stock market in the past week to a complete roller coaster. Mm-hmm. You went from being able to get stuff on sale to all of a sudden one decision gets made and all of a sudden it's not on sale anymore. Right? Like that's just how volatile things are. But doesn't mean it's a good or a bad market. It just means it's a market. And somehow, when you decide you're going to make a move, you just have to find out, this is my situation, these are my goals, and when's the right time to be in the market. That's the difference between good and bad. People always say, I mean, we prospect and talk to people on a weekly basis in the hundreds. And the most common thing we hear is, I'm waiting for the market to change. But why? Is it because you don't feel it's your advantage, or we're not educated enough? Which one of the reasons why we wanted to do this, because I think people are getting information from places that are not serving them to the best of their interest, for sure, 100%.
Do you want to add something else?
Yes, I mean, since this is a buyer seminar, I think we're focusing on buyers today.
Yeah.
We've touched on the ability to negotiate from a better position so you can get a better deal.
Yep.
All of the protections that are written into the home buying process, like appraisals, inspections, things that are purely meant to protect the buyer, you now have those on your side, whereas you didn't have those a couple of years ago. So not only can you get better deals, but it's a safer time to buy than it was 2 years ago. And you cannot be disappointed quite as often as we were a couple of years ago as well. So, and that was when rates were significantly lower. And we had people, I know we're not to the rate section yet, but we had people back when rates were at 2.5% that were saying, I'm going to wait till rates get higher because I cannot buy a house right now. It's too expensive for me to buy a house right now because I'm having to offer $50,000 over and take away all those protections that I'm not comfortable with. So yeah, I mean, you can't even judge the market on where the rates are because there's so much that goes into it. That's just one piece.
And now we're meeting people that bought then that need to move for personal reasons that can't sell. Challenging, a lot of challenges. Shahred and I got to go to an event in Las Vegas this past February, and Gary Keller said something from stage that was so powerful. He was like, if you're gonna live in a house longer than 3 years, it doesn't matter when you buy. We'll show you the trend line that proves that, but basically it doesn't matter when you buy it, as long as you live in it longer than 3 years. So if you're a flipper, just turn the video off. We'll call you when you're ready. This is not the day for you. If you're coming here for work for 1 year, not rent something. But if you want to make a life, put some roots, doesn't matter. 3 years, you'll be fine. Be totally fine, 100%. New listings, new stuff on the market. This is a huge, we just talked a little bit about it, we're gonna go a little deeper. We're double listings now than last year, double. In the counties we spoke about last February, there were 3,360 opportunities for you to find a home. There is now 6,783. That's double. Double. So again, that contributes to days on market, right? Like that's because there's more things for people to choose from. There's going to be more opportunities, and I think we've seen sale prices kind of. I don't want to say that they're not going to plummet. Anybody who said is waiting for 2008 to happen, I apologize, it's not happening. But it is. We have stopped seeing it skyrocket. The hockey stick is over, right? We're starting to see things stabilize a little bit because at some point, as a buyer, you walk into a home that's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1-floor ranch that's on for $590,000 and go, I'm not paying that for a ranch. I'm not doing it. And then it seems that every buyer says it at the same time, and it just puts a freeze on everything for a minute. Because what a realtor does is finds out what the seller's willing to sell it for and what the buyer's willing to buy it for and bridge the gap in the middle. That's what we do. So the gap's got too big for a little while. Fourth quarter of last year, the gap was like, sellers still thought we were living in 2023, the buyers were making a new market, and everything just froze. It was the slowest time I've ever been in my real estate license, ever. It was basically, the motivation was like a -1 for anybody to do anything. And that's when they, by the time you hear about that in the media, it's too late because they're not in it every day. So by the time they get that numbers and they broadcast it, it's not there anymore. That's the challenge with what goes on. Unless you're in it every day, you can't really know when the bottom or the top actually is happening until it's done. So if you're looking to do something right now or the next year or so, you definitely have a more opportunity to pick what you want versus get stuck with what's left. That's what a lot of people are doing. They're getting stuck with what's left. Average sales price, like I said, pretty much the same. From the beginning of last year to now, I mean, maybe 9% it went up last year in certain areas, but for the most part in this area. So nationally, by the way, it's the other direction. Remember, we saw that in Film Reunion in Las Vegas, that actually nationally it's like down 2%. So that's kind of an interesting concept that in Florida we're holding strong. We're holding strong. So that's good news for sellers that are watching as well. So we made that statement. Now you guys can take me through this because appreciation is really cool. Both of you ladies sell real estate, right? You both purchased a home last year, didn't you? Why? Michelle, why'd you buy your house?
Well, I was like, just like some buyers thinking I'm gonna wait, and was wasting money waiting, just paying rent. So it was like time to buy a house. Like you say, I have no plans to move the next 2 years. So it was a great investment to put my money where I'm gonna see a return other than being paying rents and paying my landlord's mortgage. So it took me a while, even though that's what I was telling my buyers the whole time, took me a while to do this for myself.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it was also the right time. I found the perfect house and the location that I wanted to be, and I just went for it.
Yeah. Yeah, so what a lot of people don't realize is that a majority of the wealth built in our country, even in the world, come from real estate. So I don't know who's here, what your ages are, and it doesn't matter, but the baby boomer generation is the biggest generation. It has the most people that are alive right now that are still in a generation. They have the most, they're biggest by a landslide. And a gigantic portion of the wealth in the country is tied up in their homes. A gigantic part is tied up in their homes. So when you think about that, if a home appreciates 1% to 2% a year, average is 3% a year, right? If that happens, how long do you think you'll live in your house, Michelle?
A long time.
Yeah. Yeah. More than 5 years?
More than 5 years, for sure.
So you think maybe it will be worth more now than it is now?
Yes.
Yeah.
For
Even
sure.
if it's a challenging market?
Mm-hmm.
The only one time in our history has a appreciation gone negative, and that was 2008, 9, and 10, and it created fraud demand that happened. Like it literally had to be fraudulent for that to happen.
Yeah.
So it's the only asset that you can own that you can guarantee over the long term you will not lose. As long as, I'm going to put in a little asterisk, because we go into a lot of houses, you maintain the property as if you wanted to live there and keep it nice. We've walked into some places and they're like, well, we've had it for 12 years. Well, it looks like you've had it for 50.
Yeah.
And the Golden Girls want their couch back.
Can I add a slightly different perspective on that? So I bought my house in 2019, and I mean rates were at 4.5%, 5%, pretty much where they are now, a little lower, but they were not crazy low. Then when the craziness of the 2.5%, 3% came around, rather than trying to compete with everyone else to buy a house, I was able to just refinance my house, still take advantage of what the market was offering in that time, but I didn't have to move, I didn't have to compete with everybody, I didn't have to pay more for the house to get it. I think we're in a very similar position right now because most of the industry professionals are projecting lower rates in the next 2, maybe 3 years. So when that happens, we're gonna see buyer demand come back, we're gonna see it shift from a buyer's market to a seller's market. If you buy a house now or in the next 6 months, when that time comes, you're going to be in a better position to take advantage of that market. If you wait until that time comes, now you're going to get caught up in all the competition again. So I didn't foresee rates getting to 3%, and I'm in the business, but it definitely worked well in my favor because had I waited, not only would I have missed out on the appreciation, but I probably would have missed out on opportunity in the refi as well.
What were rates yesterday?
On average, about 6.7, 6.8. It's a low average, but let's just call it 7% to give it a nice round number.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. We're going to get to that. That's an interesting number. You know what's interesting about this? And I'm just going to say this because it's kind of funny. I go out and hang out with a lot of different people. We all do. And people say to me, like, oh, we'll never buy a house at this interest rate. And I think about, and then as we're having dinner, now this is the funny part. We're having dinner and they go, I'm not going to buy a house at a 7% interest rate. And then we have dinner and they take a credit card out and they pay for the dinner. And I'm like, that's 29% right there for a steak.
Yeah.
Like, so you're okay with paying 29% for average food, but to live and change your life 7% is too much. I'm kind of missing the point here. Just my soapbox, I guess. Speaking of that, credit card debt's at an all-time high. It's in the trillions. 2 trillion, I think it is now, national average. 2 trillion credit card debt. 29% interest. Mafia. It's like mafia percentage, right? You've come up with some opportunities where people could actually take that, when they purchase a home, take that credit card debt and roll it into the new rate.
Absolutely.
How?
Well, it's what we call a blended rate. So people tend to focus very much on their mortgage rate, but they ignore their car that maybe at 7 or 8%. They ignore the credit cards at 29, 30%. So if you have a buyer, let's say, that has 10% to put down on a house, let's call it $50,000. Maybe we only put $35,000 into the house and we finance that 35 at 7%, let's say, and you take that other 15,000 and you pay off those credit cards that you're paying 30% on. So a lot of times people tend to look at the mortgage rate, the mortgage payment, well, if I save a little bit here, I can save $50 on my mortgage. Or we could take that same money that you were going to spend on the house, pay off the credit cards, and on a total monthly budget, we could be saving you $300 or $400 per month. Now you've kind of freed up your budget, whether you want to spend that on lifestyle or you want to put that towards the principal balance on your mortgage. There's just a lot more options we can do to build wealth with that. But I think that total monthly budget picture gets lost. And frankly, right now, a lot of people are shopping at the top of their budget. So if we can free up $300,000 or $400,000 a month in their budget, guess what? They're not at the top of their budget anymore. They can afford this house more comfortably than they could have otherwise.
Yep, agreed. 100%. So this next slide talks about active listings. These are things, and we like to change the word active in our world. We don't use them active. We call them unsold, because if they were active, they'd be sold. They're not active. They're just sitting there, hanging out, waiting for you to come by. So in February of last year, in 4 counties, in the Seminole, Osceola, Orange, and Lake County area, there was 6,700 homes to sell in February of last year. Last year, by the way, was the 5th largest volume of homes ever sold in the United States, ever. So it wasn't that bad of a market. So now we have 9,442 at the year to date right now that are on the market right now, ready to be sold. 3,000 more opportunities than there were this time last year, for all the reasons we spoke about. Days on market, prices have kind of come to a weird place. People aren't understanding the rate. Like, everybody's got the fence and they're sitting on it. That's kind of where we are in the moment. But Warren Buffett has a saying, and it says, when everybody's scared, you get greedy. And when everybody's greedy, you get scared. Right? And this is probably this is going to be, in the next 4 or 5 years, the biggest transfer of wealth our country has ever seen. Simply just because of people taking opportunities that we're in right now and just taking advantage of what they can get their hands on. What can I buy? Just go to your lender and say, what is it that I can't afford? And go buy what you can buy, and figure it out later. And then a monthly supply, and we talk about things in monthly supply simply because if no new house came on the market now, this is how many months it would take for us to have 0 houses to sell, based on the activity in buyer's side right now. So February 2025 is about the same as a little more than it was in February 2024. 4 month supply. It was 2.8, which means like basically in 65 days, if no new house came on the market, there was going to be 0 houses left to sell. There are parts of the country up in the Northeast that are down they don't measure them in months right now, they're measuring them in weeks. Weeks. It's like if nobody puts a house in the market next 3 weeks, we're out of business. There's no more food on the shelves of Publix. It's over. Like, there's nothing for us to sell. 4 months is a pretty good number. What's a balanced market?
About 6 months, that's what they said. 6
months, yeah. 6 months is pretty balanced. So we're still kind of living in that seller's market kind of world with the 4 months of inventory, which is still not terrible, but it's getting closer to balanced, for sure. Closer to balanced. And this gets us to the last slide, which is rates. So this is the wild part. If you can see it, if not, we're going to see these slides if you're on Facebook Live also. But since 1972, the average interest rate has been 7.72. If you average it up. Now, because of the years of the 15, 14, 16%, that kind of skews us a little bit. But then we also have the years of the 3s and the 2s. So we went back and drew a trend line from 1990 and made it so that it's after all the high interest rates came down. And it's still sitting somewhere on the 6% number. And you said it was somewhere around 6.7, 6.8, something like that, right? So we're kind of getting back to normal. Around what interest rates should be versus what they were. I don't like to make a lot of predictions, but I don't know if our lifetime we're going to see 3% again. You never know.
I don't think we will. The question was posed to me this way: are rates too high today, or were they too low in 2021? And the answer to that question is rates were too low. Our real estate industry couldn't handle it. The mortgage industry couldn't handle it. I think it was manufactured to get us that low.
Yeah.
So if they have to manufacture it again to make sure we don't get that low again, I think they will. Whoever they is that's out there controlling the world. I don't think it's going to happen. It caused 15% inflation. It caused people to overbuy for their homes. I think it was, frankly, it was great for the people that were involved at the time, because a lot of people through refinance took advantage of it. I just think it probably in some ways did more harm than it did good. So I don't think we'll ever get back there again. Now, typically a healthy mortgage rate is anywhere from 4.5% to 7%. If it gets to 4.5%, you're going to see a lot more buyer activity, drive more of a seller's market. If it stays up, near 7%, I think the buyers actually will have a little more power there. But I mean, at the end of the day, everybody's rate is different, and you cannot make this decision on rate. It's just one piece of the puzzle. And if you have questions or concerns around that, that's what we're here for. Talk to us. Let's plan around it. There's plenty of ways through negotiating that you can get your rate bought down lower. So there's ways to get around it if that's a pain point for you, but do not let it stop you.
So we have a saying in the industry: marry the house, date the rate. Marry the house and date the rate, because as rates change, you can change with them. And but when you find the house that you want, it's time for you to move, then you move. A lot of things we hear right now, people are like, well, I'm not going to sell my house, I'm going to rent it. It's like, well, good luck with that too. If you're not a landlord, then that's a challenging thing. And I think that has also flooded the market with more inventory. People like, I'm making a lifestyle change, and I'm not really a landlord. I'm not really interested in hanging out in this thing for 4, 5, 6 more years and take the chance of somebody, basically putting $10,000, $15,000 worth of damage into my place. That's also, I think, contributed to a lot of things in our world here.
I just made a really interesting statement too, and I don't know if anybody caught this. When rates are low, advantage to the sellers.
Yeah.
When rates are high, advantage to the buyers. That is completely backwards from what everyone else is saying.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not trying to be some philosophical genius up here, but we're seeing it play out. We saw it play out in 2021 when rates were super low. Advantage sellers. We're seeing it now. Rates are higher, and buyers have the advantage. So when everybody gets scared, that's when you should get greedy. That's a perfect example.
Yeah, when people get scared, you get greedy. And there was no way the hockey stick could continue to go up, because, my daughter, she's 19. If the kid kept going the way it was going, the only way that generation was going to buy a home is if somebody left it to them. It was getting out of control. I mean, it was getting to a point where when she's 25, 30 years old, she's not going to get $1 million to buy an average house if it kept doing what it was doing. No other time in our history has that happened and not corrected itself. So there's going to be a correction. We're in the correction, but we still got to live while we're in a correction. And a correction isn't always a bad thing. It's just sometimes you just need to figure out what your goals are. And I would suggest you get with somebody who's a real estate professional, get with a mortgage professional, and figure out what your goals are and what, based on the knowledge they have of the market at that moment, what you should do. Make sense?
I totally agree.
Poetry.
We're gonna have some extra time with some folks in the room. We're gonna wrap up our Facebook thing here in a minute. You guys, your panel, have anything else you want to add to our Facebook Live folks?
I just want to add that you can always refinance your mortgage. You cannot renegotiate the price of the house.
Right. Yeah. Good. Well, thank you guys on Facebook Live for joining us, and we'll get these slides out to all of you.